So the Liberal Democrats have today weighed into the drug debate. I'm not saying they haven't weighed into it before, but they have the sort of posts like the war on drugs has failed, like and share if you agree. And I want to talk a little bit about this issue. Firstly, when I've tried to discuss this issue on that forum, I've been automatically misunderstood, which is unfortunate, simply because I've talked about a matter of responsibility. Now, regarding the war on drugs, which is somewhat of an abstract term that's been used by various governments over the last roughly 40 years, begun roughly in the Nixon administration in the United States, and various governments and countries have adopted similar wars on drugs. Needless to say, various wars on drugs have caused hundreds of thousands of lives. It's been a very, very bloody struggle. If we look at countries like Afghanistan, Colombia, Mexico, whereby armed conflict has been a direct result of wars on drugs. So I'm very open to the idea that the war on drugs has failed, and the objectives behind it, perhaps whilst having good intentions, have been very counterproductive. So I'm very open to that. I'm open also to the concept of legalization, because if you look at a country like Portugal, it has relatively low crime rates. They have a controlled system whereby drugs are legal. As far as I know, addicts are given a certain amount of drugs. There's a system there in place that was the first country in the world to legalize all drugs. And certainly some Central American countries are now calling for that. I believe the president of Honduras was. Because Central American countries have some of the highest crime levels around, and very often it's connected to the drugs trade. Of course, the war on drugs in Mexico has been extremely bloody. 120,000 people killed in about 7 years. So clearly there does need to be a change in direction. But one thing I notice that is missing from all of this debate is an idea of responsibility, notably on addicts themselves. It seems to me, and this is going to be a conservative angled video because my views on this are somewhat conservative. I take the view that if you choose to take a dangerous illegal substance, you're responsible for what happens afterwards. Now, just to be clear, I am fully aware that people get onto drugs for a wide variety of reasons. Sometimes it's to cope with a very, very difficult circumstance. It could be family breakdown, it could be homelessness, it could be a whole range of different reasons. And I'm not heartless. I think those issues really need to be taken on board, and I do support treating these people, giving them help. I'm also open to the idea that drug use in itself shouldn't be a crime. I'm completely open to that, just to make my position clear. But what I have a problem with is when drug users or advocates of making drugs completely legalized sort of blame society for this problem. Let's not beat around the bush. Drugs cause misery. Even if there was no crime involved, they still cause misery because of the obvious health problems. So no one can tell me rationally that drugs are a good thing. And the problem I have with some advocates for drug legalization is they don't seem to have any problem with drugs. They seem to think, oh, it's nothing wrong with it. Even leaving aside the crime factor, the health implications are massive. That goes without saying. You cannot rationally tell me that injecting heroin into your veins is good for you. So a lot of these people seem to either be, I can't help but feel either they've been drug addicts themselves, therefore they're speaking from a biased position, or they're incredibly naive. No one can tell me that drugs are a good thing. Leave aside all the legal issues for 1 second and let's just talk about drugs. They're not good. No one can convince me that there's anything good about drugs. And I'm not talking about medicinal drugs. I'm talking about purely drugs for recreation or trying to escape a difficult circumstance. And like I said, I know people get onto them for a variety of reasons. But here's the problem I have, right? The situation as it stands is that drugs are illegal in many countries, and very often addicts resort to crime to fuel their habit. That's indisputable. Now what the Lib Dems are proposing, that criminal or that criminal gangs and dealers get punished. That's good. I'm all for that. But I don't think it's fair that someone who chooses to take drugs, i.e. an addict, who has resorted to crime to fuel that habit, doesn't have to face any sort of responsibility. That seems ridiculous to me. If a free-thinking adult chooses to do something dangerous, they're responsible. Should they get treatment? Yes. Should they be treated with compassion? Yes. But if they have done something, i.e. violently mug someone to get money to fuel their habit, that should be considered a crime and they should be punished for that. Okay, not the drug use in itself, but the fact that they committed a crime to fuel it. And the problem I have with a lot of drug abolition advocates is they don't seem to have any sort of sense that the user themselves are responsible. I'm fed up of some drug users blaming everyone but themselves. And this is not about being authoritarian. I've just had one guy accuse me of sort of wallowing over an authoritarian mindset and being holier than thou. It's not about that. I'm not a saint. I'm not presenting myself as pure. I've been drunk. I've done stupid things. But you know what? I don't blame anyone other than myself. If I get drunk and do something stupid, that's my own fault. If a drug user chooses to take a dangerous illegal substance, surely they have responsibility for that choice. Now, it may well be that they're in a situation in life where they couldn't handle the pressure anymore and they took the drugs as a way to escape from that. I understand that. That's why I'm saying that there should be some sympathy. But at the same time, there should be a sense of responsibility. You cannot tell me that a drug addict is a victim in the same way as, say, someone born with a severe disability is. No way. And this is not including people who are, for example, spiked or forced to take drugs or something like that. I'm talking about people who take drugs because they think it will be exciting or they think it will be help them to escape from the problems or whatever. Yes, we can have understanding. Yes, treatment. But if they have resorted to crime to fuel that habit, they should not be escaping justice just because they're an addict. So people say that people who come out with things like drugs should not be a crime at all are profoundly naive, because even if you legalise this, there will still be some people resorting to crime to fuel it. Say, for example, because of street prices, they can't afford the street price. So there'll still be people resorting to crime to fuel it. I mean, alcohol is legal, and it doesn't stop alcohol-related crimes taking place. So I don't buy into this idea that if you legalise all drugs, you're going to have this utopian situation where there are no drug-related crimes. I do believe that it could lower drug-related crimes, and it would certainly make life hard for criminals who trade in drugs. But the idea that it's going to mean there'll be no drug-related crimes, that's just naive. So basically, I am open to the idea of legalisation, but let's not pretend that drugs are a good thing. And I'm so sick and tired of advocates trying to make out that there are no problems with drugs and that it's all the government's fault. I mean, if an adult chooses to take a dangerous illegal substance, let's not forget that fact. It's illegal in the first place, so if you choose to take it, you're knowingly breaking the law. What difference is there from that and going into a shop and stealing something? I mean, people will say it's a victimless thing because it's entirely for their own use. Fair enough, but it's still illegal. So the problem I have with this is responsibility and the fact that advocates will not accept the people who choose to take drugs have any responsibility. They'll blame the government, they'll blame society, they'll blame anyone but the user themselves. And I really do have a problem with that. If I go into some seedy nightclub and I approach a dealer and I say, can you give me £10 worth of your stuff, whatever it is, that is entirely a decision that I have made. Now, why is it square or authoritarian to point out this fact? I don't think that is unreasonable at all. All I'm talking about is responsibility. And I'm not trying to be holier than thou. I've made stupid mistakes in my life. You know, I've binge drink. Sorry, I'm trying to find the right adjective. I've resorted to binge drinking when I have been depressed. Is that reckless? Yes. So I'm not heartless. I understand there's a wide variety of reasons why people might resort to drugs, and I do think they should be treated with compassion, because very often then they become slaves to the addiction, and that is beyond their control. The point I'm trying to make is the initial decision to take the drugs was in their control. It was. So that initial choice in itself, that is a responsibility factor, and I wish more people would recognise that fact. So in short, I am open to the idea of legalising drugs based on the Portuguese model, but people who resort to crime to fuel their habit should be punished, and the idea that they shouldn't is utterly absurd.